friends, and welcome to Britt Talks About Final Fantasy VII because she finally finished it after 20 years of procrastination. But seriously though, I am here to talk about Final Fantasy VII, but instead of reviewing it in the traditional sense, which I think we can all agree wouldn't make much sense for me to do that because it's been reviewed like 1.5 million times, I thought I would throw questions out to you guys and let you ask me questions about certain aspects of Final Fantasy VII, what I liked, what I didn't like, and all that good stuff. So it's going to be a little different, but I think it will be fun. I have a boatload of questions here from you guys, and thank you for submitting them. Again, that's awesome and rad, and I really appreciate you. I'm going to try to answer all of these, so my answers will probably be short, concise, and sort of to the point. Yeah. Before we start though, I just want to briefly let you know my general thoughts about Final Fantasy VII. I think it's fucking amazing. It's a great game. I loved almost every minute of it. Some of it, I got a little lost at times, and you know, there's not a lot of hand-holding in this game, and that's fine, but that's the way games were made back then. So yes, I enjoyed it greatly, and I'm very happy that I finally played it. Our first question comes from Sean. Have you decided to fight Ruby and Emerald, and if not, why? Unfortunately, I did not get around to fighting Ruby and Emerald. My excuse is probably a lame one, but it's the fact that I don't have enough time to spend aimlessly wandering around. I have other games I really need to get to, and my whole point of playing Final Fantasy VII was to get the characters and the story down pat. I would have loved to have done all the side things, but back in those days, games weren't really holding your hand, and to be honest, I have no idea how to even get Ruby and Emerald. I think it has something to do with chocobo breeding, another thing I didn't do because I'm a fucking monster. So again, like, point of playing the game was to get down the story and characters for the remake, but someday I would like to play the game again and 100% it. Tom asks, did you already know the full story before playing, and did it make it any less confusing? So a brief history, back in the day I tried playing Final Fantasy VII when it first came out, around the time it came out actually, and I bought a used copy, it was corrupted, bought another used copy, that game was corrupted, so I never got around to finishing it, and I kind of just shelved it until a few months ago, which is terrible and not a very good excuse. So, knowing that, I knew about the first 10 or 15 hours into Final Fantasy VII when I just started it a couple months ago. I knew that part of the story. I knew about a certain character's death because who the hell doesn't? And that is all I knew. And yeah, the story got a little confusing, especially as like stuff about Sephiroth and Cloud and Zack and all this other weird mind fuckery started unraveling. I'm kind of like an 87% on clarity on what exactly went down in Final Fantasy VII. I'm trying to read Wikipedias and fully grasp what happened. But it was really interesting, and the story definitely kept me hooked throughout. So while I was confused, I still enjoyed it. David asks, did you already know about Aerith's death ahead of time, or did you go into the game blindly? Again, I went into the game blindly in terms of the first like 10 or 15 hours. I knew about her death. I didn't know when it was going to happen or like what point in the story it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to impact the story. I didn't know if she was going to ever come back. I didn't know any of that stuff. So that said, even when the death did occur, and even though as I got closer to it, I started putting two together. I'm like, okay, we're getting to be that time, especially when a little book thingy I was looking at, I was like, you might want to take off her gear. When it told me that, I'm like, shit. So even though I fully knew it was coming, even though I've known about it for probably as long as all of you guys have, I still cried like a little baby. It was terrible. That's a fucked up scene, man. God. Raymond asks, would you say Final Fantasy VII is your new favorite Final Fantasy game, or just in the top 10 only behind Final Fantasy IX? This is really tricky for me because Final Fantasy IX and I have a lot of nostalgia together, and so I'm not sure how much the nostalgia plays a factor into me standing on top of the highest cliff and yelling, Final Fantasy IX is the best one! I would have to play it again, now with my more tuned and toned critical eye. So it's hard. I don't know. I can't really answer this question. What I will say though is I feel like Final Fantasy IX did a better job at character exploration and character relationships. I thought the characters were a lot more in depth and had a lot more time dedicated to them, a lot more downtime. That said, I know 9 came out a few years after 7, or however many years it was, probably like 4 or so, I'm not sure. So I know between that time there's a lot more technology developments and story advancements, so it's a hard, almost unfair question. Logan asks, would you recommend Final Fantasy VII to someone as their first Final Fantasy or JRPG? As someone's very first JRPG, That would depend, because obviously Final Fantasy VII is like almost 20 years old, so a lot has changed between the way games are built then and the way games are built now. For me personally, I found it to be very, very nostalgic, and it reminded me of games of old, which to me is a good feeling. Some people might not be as into that. They might need the hand-holding, the more directions. So with that, I can't really say I would recommend it to be someone's first JRPG. I wish I could, but man, games have come along so far since then that I feel like you need to appreciate. That's hard. Because what I would be worried about is that they would play Final Fantasy VII and be like, oh, this is so dated, I don't understand what's happening, why is this so ugly, and why is it so, and you'd be like, no, it's 20 years old, and be like, oh, well, show me what JRPGs today have to offer. So that's one side of it. Another side is like, you should start from like the fucking beginning and start in the NES and do that Final Fantasy. What? That said, if you are a seasoned JRPG player and you've never played a Final Fantasy game, I would recommend that you play Final Fantasy VII, and hell, why not it be your first? I mean, if you've played JRPGs, if you've grown up playing them, you know what to expect of a game that's 20 years old, so I feel like you can appreciate it for what it is. Chris asks, are you going to play the remastered version when it comes out to PlayStation 4? Fuck yeah! Oh my god, I'm so excited. Yes, absolutely. And that remaster announcement is part of the reason that I finally lit the fire under my ass to try Final Fantasy VII again for the third time in 20 years. Oh, it's so terrible. Yeah, totally. I am so pumped, and I was going to say pumped and thrilled, and I was going to say thrumped, and that's not a word. I'm very excited, yes. Bobby's question, who was your favorite character and what was your favorite part of the game? Oh, that's hard. That's really hard. I really liked Cloud as a character. I like all the developments he went through. I liked him more in the latter part of the game where he's discovered himself and he actually has a personality. That was wonderful. I think Tifa is a really cool, badass character, but I really also liked Red. I don't know, something about Red. He was just very innocent and young, and I just felt like, pure-hearted, and I just really connected with that character a lot. It's cliche, but I'm gonna have to say Cloud. Sid also is a pretty badass character. I can't pick. My favorite part of the game would have to be the end battle with Sephiroth, just the way, like, the scene just fades in, the one winged angel starts playing, and he's all, like, hot and sexy in his one winged angel glory, and I just, damn, that was just, like, that is the coolest boss battle I've ever experienced in any game ever. It was the most like, holy shit, shit's going down. And yeah, it was awesome. Pedro asks, what enticed you to finally play the game? The announcement of the remaster, plus it's just been at the top of my JRPG bucket list ever since I can remember. So that's what enticed me. That's an ugly face. Joshua Butterworth, what were your thoughts on the final showdown between Cloud and Sephiroth? Like, final, like, after you've defeated him final and you can't lose final. I thought that was pretty cool. That was, like, pretty, like, epic, you know, because you know you're gonna win. But the actual, like, fight, oh my god. It was the coolest, most epic, most badass, most adrenaline-pumping boss battle I've ever experienced, ever. And I've been playing games for, you know, 23-ish years, which I know isn't a lot compared to a lot of you, but hey, roll with me here. It was really interesting because I went throughout the game defeating the normal bosses with total and utter ease. I had no problems defeating them whatsoever. So I thought I would have no issues with Sephiroth. I thought I had, like, you know, like, beefed up my arsenal, aka my materia and my levels. So I was gonna, like, it was gonna be an easy win. And I got owned so hard, and it was so out of the blue. I wasn't expecting it, and it was funny because I was just the whole time going like, oh shit, and just yelling to myself in the house as I was getting creamed. The problem is that he would one-hit me. Sephi would one-hit me with his melee attacks, and I couldn't heal fast enough. I didn't have barrier on, I didn't have anything, and I just, God, it sucked. But it was awesome at the same time. So I grinded a little bit, and I had no problem defeating him like 5 levels later after I got the right materia equipped too. That made a big difference. AJ asks, will you go back and get all of the side quests? Someday I would like to, I really would. When I have more free time and I'm rich and can just sit on my butt all day and play video games. Jose's question, who were your final 3 in the battle against Sephiroth and at what levels? I had Barret, Tifa, and Cloud, and I believe the first time I tried to defeat him, I was level 66-ish, average of 66, and then when I finally defeated him, I was about 73, and I also had the right materia, and that made, again, all the difference. Cody's question is, didn't you find it odd that they simply couldn't bring Aerith back to life with a Phoenix down? I didn't even think about this until I read your question on Facebook. What the fuck is up with that? I mean, why not? Like, when you die in battle against monsters, is it not the same as being stabbed by Sephiroth? I guess not, because that you can't bring those people back to life, apparently. Scott's question is, have you seen Advent Children? If not, you should definitely check it out. Dude, I have the Blu-ray copy at my feet right now because I just got it in. And yes, I'm gonna watch it ASAP. I'm really excited to see this. The funny thing is I saw this when I was, so it came out in 97. I must have been about 14 or 15. And I saw this. My friend Melissa had played the game and finished it. And she was like, let's watch this. And I was like, okay. And I knew of Final Fantasy VII, obviously, because I had tried to play it a little bit earlier on in my life. And I remember I've seen it, I remember some of the battle scenes, but that's it. So I'm excited to watch it again and relearn what happened. Tony's question is, considering how you feel about Final Fantasy VII, having played it in 2016, how do you think your opinion would differ had you played it upon its release 19 years ago? I can only imagine. Had I actually played Final Fantasy VII from start to finish 19 years ago, I'm sure one of these shrines behind me would have been a Final Fantasy VII shrine. I loved it a lot. I mean, I understand what JRPGs were like back in the day, and so I'm able to use that nostalgia and that knowledge to appreciate what the game is. And I can, like I said, again, I can only imagine like how much I would have loved it back then, how much it would have blown my mind, how obsessed I would have become with it. I can only imagine. Tony's second question is, where does Sephiroth rank on your Final Fantasy villains rank list? Probably number 1. I really liked him as a character and as a villain. And that, again, that final fight, like, that's enough right there to put him at number 1. Final Fantasy IX, like, that's the only one I would really compare it to. And the other Final Fantasy games I finished, I don't even remember who the final boss was, so what does that tell you? 9, Kuja, I mean, he's kind of like one of the main bosses, and just, he was okay. Not very threatening. I can't get over that feather in his hair and his metal thong. I just, you know. Jeffrey's question is, what were your thoughts on Cloud as a character at first and by the time you finished the game? Does he live up to the hype that's always surrounding him? Well, you see, I'm partial because I think Cloud's hot, so that automatically, like, gets, no, I'm just kidding. I'm actually not kidding. He is pretty, I'd hit it. Yes, I think he lives up to the hype because of the character Cloud is in the latter part of the game. I feel like he comes full circle. If he had remained super, like, down and short sentence and like very anticlimactic the whole game, I would have been like, why do you guys like this guy so much? It doesn't make any sense. But the fact that he made a complete 180 to me makes it awesome. And yes, I think he lives up to the hype. Juan's question is, now that you finished the game, what are your expectations for the remake? I'm not sure. This is hard because when it was first announced, I was like, oh cool, I'll experience Final Fantasy VII for the first time, you know, like as a newbie, as a virgin Final Fantasy VII player, yay. But now that I finished it, I can't help but have some sort of expectations. Now I know they're doing things a little differently. There's talks of an episodic release. They're doing combat different. They're adding some new story things, I believe I read somewhere. So, you know, the way I look at it is Final Fantasy VII is always going to be Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation. Like, those 3 discs, you can't take away. That game is immortalized in those discs. So whatever they do with Final Fantasy VII, the new one, whatever, let it be, because I feel like you can't change what Final Fantasy VII already is. And so I think a fresh, new, fun take on it could be fun and appreciated. So do I have expectations? No, I guess I would like to see more in-depth story stuff. Like, I think that would be fun. There's no reason why they can't do that. So I would say the only thing I really want is more character time and more in-depth story things. Yeah. Last but not least, and a very appropriate question from Ryan. Which character would you sleep with? I would bang Cloud, I would bang Sephiroth, I would bang Tifa, Vincent, I feel like Sid. I'd bang most of them. Most of them. Not Yuffie, not Red, not Barrett. Barrett's too angry, he's too loud, he's too obnoxious for me. Everything's rah! He does swear a lot though, and I appreciate that about him. Yeah, I'd sleep with most of them though. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was an interesting, hair in my face, interesting way of allowing me to talk about Final Fantasy VII without actually reviewing it, because I feel like I said, too many people have already done that, and I don't know what I could really bring to that table. So, yay, thank you so much for your questions, and if you have any more, let me know in the comments below. Bye!